first call to the public for the Finance Committee. Do we have anyone? Seeing none, Julie, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. I don't have a lot, I guess, to report on. I attended a conference last week in Grand Rapids for the Michigan Association of County Treasurers, and it was interesting and always good to talk with the other treasurers and always learn little tidbits. We're very busy in the office at this time, although I had Morgan print off my latest end of the day dog report for you. And our dog licenses, we are only at 1,190. And I would have thought we would be at least double that by now. They're considered on time through the end of February. I have a feeling we're gonna get just slammed in the next couple weeks. So I'm sad about that report. It's not looking good. I don't know what our answers are, but that's where that stands as of 4:45 tonight. Other than that, we're busy with tax collection and local taxes are due to your townships the 14th to avoid late fees. So they're busy also at this time and we're busy in the office too. And pretty crazy today, just flew by. But any questions or any thoughts for me?
All right, thank you, Julie.
Thanks.
All right, we have one agenda item. I would look for a motion to approve the earned sick time policy as presented and amend the employee handbook to reflect the new policy.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Eric, can you
Yes,
shed any light on this?
I can. So before you, you have a revised sick time policy. This is the result of voter-initiated legislation that was the subject of extensive litigation that went up to the Supreme Court. In effect, what we are stuck with is the draft initiated law that was prepared by the interest groups who circulated the petition several years ago. And that law is expansive. It includes very few exceptions, carve-outs, or any sort of common sense approach to dealing with sick time. At this point, we did wait. We were getting guidance from the state. They have some Q&As out. There's been legislative activity at the House and Senate. At this point, I don't have a lot of faith that the final result of that, if it actually leads to a bill further amending the Sick Time Act, that final result will be dramatically different enough to really impact the county in a positive way. The House version that was passed is very good for us. It would exclude municipal governments from having to comply with this Earned Sick Time Act. The Senate versions that I've seen out there do not include such a carve out, and they just kind of nibble around the edges. And that's really not going to dramatically change things unless the conference, if there's a result that could be good for us. I'd love to be back here in 2, 3, 6 months repealing this, going back to what we had before, because it doesn't make a lot of sense for a county like ours that already provides very generous sick time benefits to most of its employees. And so, having said all that, the main policy change that we have to comply with, there's two of them. Number one, all employees have to accrue sick time. That includes part-time employees, that includes seasonal employees, okay? So the number one thing is that there is a policy section in here that deals specifically with part-time employees. There's actually two of them, and I'll talk about the difference between the two of them. So that is the biggest single, I think, impact to the county, is that there will be certain, like our folks who do the grass cutting, they're going to be accruing sick time. And there's really no way around it. There's no carve out, there's nothing like that I can use. I operate from the position that I don't want the county, Shiawassee County, to be a test case in any lawsuit about something like this. It's just not worth the expense, exposure, and all of that, because this has already been, the validity of the law has already been litigated by up to the Supreme Court, So we're not gonna get a change on that. If we were to get really aggressive in how we implemented it, we would probably face an uphill battle there. And so I've been as conservative as I think is appropriate, and I'll kind of go through and explain that. The second major change under the law is that there can no longer be a cap on the number of sick days that an employee can carry over from one year to the next. Okay, so currently under the handbook, once an employee reaches 30 sick days, which I'm not very good at math, but that's a lot of hours. Once they reach, and we give 12 for full-time employees, we give 12 per year, 12 days per year. So that's, almost 3 years worth of sick time in their bank. Once they reach that bank, that cap of 30, anything over that is paid out to them at a reduced rate. So that right now, as it stands, people can't carry more than 30 days in their bank. What I've done in the policy is to give employees the choice to either, once they reach that cap, to either have it paid out on their own choice, so it's no longer compulsory, so I think that complies with the law. We're not forcing them to buy anything out. But if they don't, so they can choose to buy out their additional sick time once they reach 30 days, which would act just the same way that it does right now, no change. Or they can choose to carry it over, in which case, if they carry it over, our new policy says that any days over 30 shall have no cash value at all. So it basically puts the choice to the employee. Do you want to have this big bank of hours? That's fine. That's what the law says you get. You got it. But the law does not require us to pay it out if they retire or separate from service. So in that case, employees might have 60 days in their bank, but anything above 30 could only be used as sick time. It could not be cashed out.
And keep in mind that the handbook already prevents the use of sick time, vacation days, etc., to extend employment. So the goal is to have the minimal effect on our current operations.
Yeah.
By assigning a value, a cash value at 30 days, it comports to what we currently do. Now this will affect non-reps immediately, and it will affect unions when their contract comes up next.
Right.
So then it remains the same.
So this policy doesn't. It's my understanding that by February 21st we'll have everyone under contract. That has an open collective bargaining agreement, and the law says that they get until the end of that CBA, and then we have to implement it. The other thing, couple of other things that you'll notice is that we can't require documentation for sick leave time unless there's 3 days or more consecutive used. So that's pretty consistent with what we were doing anyway. That's not a big change for us. It does expand a little bit the reasons you can use sick time. Some of them are a little counterintuitive. Specifically, there's a provision in here that you can use sick time if you've been the victim of domestic violence and you need to do counseling or court dates and things like that. So that's all incorporated here in the law as well. Now, I have used 2 categories of part-time employees. We have a group of regular part-time employees who currently already receive prorated sick leave. So one thing you have to understand is that we do not have to give any more sick leave per year than we already give. We already give enough per hour worked to satisfy the law. So for regular part-time employees who already get sick leave, they'll be treated just like full-time employees, all the ways that we discussed, except of course their banks will be smaller because they only work part-time. Now, all other part-time employees have a separate policy. And what I've given them in this policy in the draft in consultation with administration is essentially they get what the law requires. They don't get any bonuses. They don't get anything extra. They don't have the ability to cash out. They get 1 hour of sick leave per 30 hours work, which is the minimum required under the law. And those employees can't take sick leave until they have 90 days of service. Okay, full-time employees can take sick leave before then. So really what we have here, when I'm extending it to part-time employees, I'm doing so in a way that complies with the law, but goes no further, in an effort to reduce as much as possible the financial and operational impact upon the county of extending sick time to those part-time employees that really a lot of them, especially seasonal, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for those folks. I've worked seasonal jobs in my life, and it's kind of the deal is you're working seasonal. That means you got to be there every day because that's when we need you. But nonetheless, law says they get to accrue, and so they will accrue, and that is in the policy, that is in the procedure.
Okay, and it says that employees do remain subject to discipline for no call, no show. That was something that I had been asked about, so.
So the law says that we cannot delay granting someone sick time if they're a little bit late getting us their documentation. Okay, so the law specifically says that they have to, if we request documentation, and that's in here that we'll do that, say it's 3 days, we say bring us your documentation, and it might be day 4 or day 5, and we don't, or they send us something and it doesn't quite comply, and we gotta get a different note. My reading of the law is that we have to grant people that sick time while that process is ongoing. We can't just say, oh, it's day 4, you didn't provide us a doctor's note, we asked for it, no sick leave, and you're fired, right? However, this is one area where I've gotten a little bit more aggressive in reading the law. Is it doesn't say that someone's allowed to just not communicate with us for no reason for 3 days, right? They don't need to, if they come in, like say they take 2 days of sick time, okay, we're not going to require, a doctor's note. Sure, we get that. But you still have to talk to us unless there's an emergency or some other reasonable basis. And that has been in our policy the entire time, right? That we want the communication. So your no call, no show is different than, hey, we're having trouble getting your documentation, or your documentation isn't quite right. Those people are going to get grace. The people who fall into the documentation category. Under the law, we have to give them some grace. But if if they no call, no show, and then when we do contact them, they have no reason for that, we can take that a little bit further. And that will remain a decision for the administration, for their supervisor, or for their elected official on how to best deal with that.
Yeah, no call, no show is not appropriate.
Okay.
If you're in the emergency room and you got hit by a car, or your daughter got hit by a truck, and stuff happens, I get that, but we don't need to let it be abused.
Okay, yeah, that had been asked, so thank you for clarifying that. Because that would definitely be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are people out there who there's been a lot of reporting that is how the law is read, that you can basically no call, no show for 3 days and you're fine. I don't read the law that way, but again, we got to balance, because what I haven't talked about is that there is a private right of action by these people to enforce this with litigation, and there is an attorney's fees provision in the statute. So we might be dealing with a handful of hours, a small amount of dollars. Normally that's not a lawsuit that gets filed, right? Because who's going to hire an attorney over that? Well, when the law says that if you lose, your attorney gets paid by the other side, that tends to bring a lot of lawsuits, like a FOIA lawsuit or an Open Meetings Act lawsuit, where there's a fee shifting provision, right? That's in the law right now. So we want to be cautious, appropriately cautious, not cowed or intimidated by the employees, but we want to be appropriately cautious so we're not looking to, we don't want the lawsuits. So it's a learning process.
All right, well, thank you. But I guess it isn't as bad as what I initially thought, so.
No, we've spent a lot of time crafting it so that it won't be.
Well, and I was at another board meeting and they were interpreting it a little differently and probably had not put the work in that you have, Eric, so thank you.
Yeah, we're not required to have a new bank at time or anything. We're just making sure that our time can be used for the allowed purposes under the law on the same terms as allowed by the law, and we give them enough time, especially full-time employees.
Right. All right, do we have any further questions on that change in policy?
It's pretty thorough.
All right, all those in favor of approving this and moving it to Wednesday signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. And we'll see that again. Brings us to our second call to the public. Seeing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Question for that, back to 5:30.
Meeting in order, please stand and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, that brings us to our first call to the public for the Economic and Physical Development Committee meeting. Hearing none. Community Development Reports with Mr. Pete Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Morgan worked with me to just hand you a new zoning permit report. We only had 3 on there. The new one shows more zoning permits. We're still having trouble issuing some of our reports. Depends on which computer you're on, which report you got. But the zoning permits were about 15, the building permits were at 8, and hopefully now you can see we have a much more robust code enforcement report that we provided to you. I'm still working on the priorities and making sure those are present, but right now I think most of them are showing priority 1, but we'll get that figured out as well. So we'll give you that as we go forward. But over the last couple of months, we've had some trouble getting that information spit out to you. We were able to get the report to at least work where it gives you that, we are doing about 40 to 50 a month code enforcement actions. That's all I have, unless you have any questions.
You said 40 to 50?
That's what we
Okay.
aim for. Now it gets a little, if there's a foot of snow on the ground, there's ice, we're not able to get out. Springtime gets a little light as well. We get people going on vacation in summer as well, just here and there.
Okay, no, I just want to make sure that when I'll mention that to my townships that I'm correctly.
Yeah, and we have their code enforcement reports down as well by township, so they'll get something similar.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Next up, agenda items. I look for a motion to accept and place on file the 2024 Register of Deeds Annual Report as presented. I'll make the motion.
I'll support.
All right, discussion.
Sorry.
So 2024 was a busy year for our office. Recordings had increased slightly. We added an extra $64,000 to the general fund from 2023. After covering all of our expenses for the year, we were able to add $194,380 to the general fund total.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
We always appreciate the register.
In 2024, we did record 12,087 documents, consisting of 42,184 pages. We also rejected 1,737 documents between e-recordings and paper deeds that didn't meet the city of Michigan code requirements. We sent $1,951,341.25 to the state of Michigan in transfer tax. based on conveyances totaling $260 million. More than that, but yeah. We worked with Jack from the RSU last year on putting CrowdStrike at the end of the year on all county servers. Wexford County got hit with ransomware in November. Their registered deeds is still not up and functioning. They can't record any kind of real estate transactions in their county, so title workers, realtors, it's dead in the water. They figure it's gonna be about another 2 months before they're up and running.
We're very lucky with ours.
And we're also working with Kevin right now on adding an additional backup layer. We do offer the property fraud alert system still. We try to get as many people to sign up for that. It notifies you once a document's recorded under your name in the system. It shoots you a text message, email, or a phone call. Phone calls, they'll try 3 times to reach you. Any questions?
Great work.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, all in favor of moving that report to Wednesday, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Excellent. All right, next, I move to approve the rehabilitation mortgage discharge for Tiffany Lynn Crampton of 315 Madison Street, Perry, Michigan.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, I'll support that.
So this is a mortgage discharge. They've completed the requirements of the grant, SOLA program that we used to offer. And so now they're ready to have the lien released from their property, from their home.
Perfect. Discussion? All right, all in favor of moving that to Wednesday, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passed. Next, I move to adopt ordinance 250201, the Middlebury PUD ordinance amendment as presented to the Board of Commissioners. Further, move that the Community Development Director is authorized and directed to cause notice of adoption of the ordinance to be published as required by the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, I'll support.
So,
Discussion.
as you may recall, in June of 2024, the Board of Commissioners amended the zoning rules for Shiawassee County to allow for PUDs, planned unit developments. And in doing so, you're essentially allowing particular areas to be zoned for multi-use for very particular purposes. Our first applicant has been Rex Wheeler for the Owasso Speedway, and his plans are before you and designed. So at this time, I would ask that Pete and Rex and Justin come up and share anything they wish to related to the project. Not everyone agrees.
Looks pretty exciting, looking at the color map. Wow.
I think that if we look at the base of this, though, is that Mr. Wheeler's project with the Owasso Speedway, a PUD is necessary on this size of development, but not only that, but the complication of the development. As you know, this speedway has languished for a number of years, and it languished because of issues such as a consent judgment that was there. We have a non-conforming use that, you know, certain periods of time in our ordinance, if you do not have you don't use the nonconformity, it extinguishes. There's so much going on with this particular property before Mr. Wheeler came in. And then Mr. Wheeler came in and added that extra boom to it. And so at that point, the PUD was the best option, because what that gave us the ability to do is handle a variety of uses under one district, instead of every time the applicant turned around that they were doing a special use permit for this and they were doing a site plan for this, and they couldn't do this because their zoning ordinance says you this and that. And so that's what we were running into as he started to developing his plans. Planning Commission discussed it, moved it on to the board to create the district, and then Mr. Wheeler brought forth his ideas and visions. And so what we essentially did was create a zoning district based upon geographical boundaries, where he came forward with what he wanted. The Planning Commission discussed what he wanted and what were the setbacks. Well, they're familiar with the area. what kind of, landscaping and buffering. It is a negotiated district, and that's exactly what happened. Mr. Wheeler and the Planning Commission went back and forth about various ideas. Now, he's given us a long list of permitted uses. Everything's going to essentially go through my office as far as a site plan review with the site plan review committee, so there will be no additional special land uses. Now, if something comes up and there's a new use that he wants to add to that, or there's a new expansion, he's looking at additional land, then at that point we would have to come back and amend this district that you're essentially creating, this PUD that you're creating. And so I think that's it in a nutshell.
And this is a major economic development in Middlebury Township and a major redevelopment of that area. Mr. Wheeler has put a lot of time, effort, and money into making it a very special place, and he has big plans to expand its use, which I think will be welcome to the area.
It's amazing when you drive by. It's like, wow.
Middlebury's on board then? I mean, they've always been kind of not in any new businesses.
Middlebury Township Board did act to support not only the PUD district being created in June, but Mr. Wheeler's application.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah, they voted 5-0 in support.
Yeah.
And it passed the planning commission, and so this will be our first PUD application now that you've created it.
And I can say on just being on the ground, meeting a lot of people in Middlebury, they're very supportive of the project. Just the people in the community really love what Mr. Wheeler is doing, so.
And
it's very welcome there.
this was a rezoning, so everyone within 300 feet of the boundaries of this project were noticed per state law. And we did not have anybody speak in opposition. I think we had one person that had some questions and concerns about the lagoon system on the south side of M21. And that is something that will primarily be regulated by Eagle. And so there's a lot that goes into that engineering wise. So that may shift and change, and I'm sure the engineers are going to be long at hard work at that particular thing. We will look at things under our current ordinance with buffering and site plans, and we will, our office is always open to a phone call from someone nearby, and Mr. Wheeler's always been one that we could reach out directly and say, hey, we've got this concern. So hopefully that relationship, I don't doubt that relationship will continue.
The planning commission reviewed it twice.
Yes,
Mr. Wheeler was there both times. I think we went back and forth on a couple of things and agreed to something that everybody was happy with. And I think we're really looking forward to this development, and I think a PUD helps enable this. This wouldn't be possible without a PUD.
No.
And so this is what really
I
enables
spend
us.
more time in this building trying to get special use permits.
Exactly.
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing I'd add. I mean, we know the positive economic impact this is happening, but this PUD zoning creates that flexibility, that negotiated zoning that I think is going to make future projects that have multiple uses that much easier to go through. This was obviously a great way to start this process, but we'll want to replicate that for future developments. It was good communication all the way through.
Thank you. Okay. Further discussion? Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just add into it, it's not just drawing race teams from the central Michigan area, it's going all the way down to Kentucky. Yeah. And that's going to draw even more attention and business to the area.
Yes.
I'm from Kentucky, right? So I don't know if you want much more of us up here.
Right. Kevin and Keelan Harvick's out of North Carolina, and they'll be here on July 7th, 16th on Wednesday night. Kevin Harvick, the retired NASCAR, we based him here. We got teams coming from all over the place, so all over. And the PUD helps us. The race season's obviously our passion and what we're building for, but the PUD is going to allow us to build buildings. Obviously, a lot of permit processes and things to go as we add buildings, but future things like weddings, a lot of different things that could help us pay the bills in those off seasons, because in Michigan, we all know we only race 5 months out of 12, so there's 7 long months of off season here in Michigan. So
Thank you. All right, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of moving this on to Wednesday, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, motion passes. That brings us to our second call to the public. Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
I gotta run. All right.
Thank you.
Fine.
PUD.
Plan you